So, good evening. This is Mark Miller with my lovely sidekick, Elizabeth Burbay. And we are here to talk about a set of books. Originally, they come from actually two posts of mine, the Career Pivot Amazon bestsellers list, which, believe it or not, I'm an Amazon affiliate. So if you click on a book on my website and buy it, I get a small piece. So based on, I listen to ProBlogger a lot, and he says, by the way, periodically do a post on. I went back and looked at all the sales that came from my website of all the books, and some of the books were not books I listed. So I went back, and none of these are my books. These are books from everybody else. The other one was I did a blog post on the 5 career books that have nothing to do about careers. And these are books that we'll largely talk about today. We're going to start out with 4, and we'll see how far that goes, that have either had impact on me or on my clients. So let's go ahead and get started. And I think the first book I want to talk about, and I'm going to let Elizabeth talk about this, and okay. This is Essentialism. Yeah. I think, and by the way, I'm going to put a link in the live chat so you can actually go to the book. So tell us about Essentialism.
So this is a great book because it talks to you about prioritizing things in your life and looking at obligations that you have, whether it's at work or social or community, and helping you to identify which ones you really should be doing more so than well, this is a good idea. And it helps you prioritize that and encourages you to look at each opportunity and ask the question, is it something that you really must do, or is it something you should do, or is it a good idea? And if you can't answer yes, an emphatic yes on the first question of is this something that you would like to do, then you should let it go and pass it on. If it's something that you should do, the author strongly suggests that you pass it and let it go, because I think there's a lot of times we get into this big list of these things that we should do, and they're not really benefiting us, they're not really helping us, they're not bringing us closer to our goal of being, more productive in our work or active in our community or spending time with our family or friends. So I just enjoyed the book because it helped me open up a new idea about how to look at obligations and priorities. And after I read it, I implemented a lot of the things that he talked about and cut back on a lot of activities that I doing that I thought I should be doing. And once they were gone, it felt good to let them go.
Well, let me ask you one question. There was he talks about how to say no.
Yes.
Which is a big part of the book. So how did you learn to say no?
I looked at each situation and asked the question, is this something that I really want to do? Is this something that it's going to make me happy, that I'm going to enjoy doing? And if I couldn't emphatically say, yes, yeah, this is something that is what I want to do, I just said, you know what, I don't have time, or let somebody else, I think there's somebody else that could handle this, or just an outright no thank you, I can't do this right now. So, and usually I have found too, you really don't need to give a long explanation of why you can't do something. You can just say, no thanks, it's not going to work in my schedule, and move on and let it be. And most people at first are a little upset with you, but after you do it a couple times, they start to value you and appreciate you, that you are taking care of yourself and setting boundaries and limits and just allowing yourself to focus on the things that really make you happy, that it's going to make you productive.
Yeah, the one thing he wrote about, by the way, the tagline is the disciplined pursuit of less.
Yeah.
Is he talks about something that I've done for years, and again, it gives me is the things like, okay, I want you to, at work, well, we want you to work on this. And the next question is, when you're overloaded, you say, well, what do you want to take off my plate then?
Yes.
What do you want me to stop doing?
Yes.
Oh, we want you to do it all. Well, I'm sorry, I can't do it all. So what do you want me to take off? Or he gives all kinds of ways to say no without using the word no. And so I've had multiple clients who have found great value because it's gotten them to prioritize, or what they've discovered is they've said no at work and nothing happened.
Well, also to add to that, I've found that sometimes by saying no, and the task or the project gets left on the table, and the world doesn't stop and things don't change, it was probably meant to be let go anyway. It wasn't that necessary to do, and it wasn't a priority. So either somebody will come along and pick this up and make it happen, or it'll fade away into the past. Yep. So, which has happened a lot of stuff I've done.
Yes. Okay, so the next book I want to talk about is something called Positive Intelligence. And I'm going to pop the link into the chat box. And Positive Intelligence, I can never pronounce this gentleman's name, is Shahzad Shamin. And what Positive Intelligence, I've had any number of clients who have gotten great benefit. And these are usually people who are very hard on themselves. So the idea is that Shahzad says is we have two sides of the brain. We have the sage side, the wise side, the good side. And then on the other side, we have the saboteurs. So on the good side, we have the sage, and then we have these 12 saboteurs on the other side. And part of the idea is to say on the good side of the brain, and I'm pointing to my right side, which doesn't mean it make any difference, is 3 times as much as you're on the negative side. And so he's got 12 saboteurs, and by the way, on his website, he has a neat little, real quick assessment to see which are your worst saboteurs.
Okay.
So one of them is the judge. You're not doing it right. The stickler. You need to do it exactly this way. And there are a whole set of them. And one of the things he wants you to do is name them. So I have a current client right now who's really hard on herself, and she has named her judge Stresszilla. And the idea is when suddenly the judge pops up in your brain, you go, oh, there's the judge. You learn to name it, recognize it, and once you can do that, you can turn it off. And
put it back in its box.
Put it back in its box and put it away.
Yep. And
the idea is to slowly over time end up on the good side of the brain. Now, he also talks about these what does he call them? Positive quotient reps, PQ reps.
Okay.
And what this is doing things that you can put your total concentration on for about 15 seconds.
Okay.
Now, some of these are very simple, like when you brush your teeth, you totally focus on feeling the bristles on your gum.
Yes. Yeah.
The one I find in the middle of the night, if I wake up in the middle of the night and my brain is racing with something really stupid, I spend a minute just wiggling my toes, and totally concentrating on wiggling my toes. And what it does is it turns this off.
That's good.
Right?
That's very good.
The one I've come up with is taking my finger and just rubbing with the center of my palm, because the center of the palm is so sensitive. And all I do is concentrate while I'm doing that. And the idea, he says, if you do this 100 times a day, you will, what will happen is you'll stay much on the good side than the bad side. And you say, wow, 100 times a day, 15 seconds. Well, some of it is when you eat. Spend some time just feeling the food in your mouth.
Yes. Yep.
There are all kinds of things you can do. And by the way, this is no different than taking deep breaths, meditation. It's a way of doing meditation, but in very, very small little pieces.
It's just focusing on one activity, being very mindful of it.
Right.
And just experiencing it with all your senses.
Yes. And the idea is between identifying your primary saboteur and be able to name it. And whenever it pops up in your brain, you can go, oh, there's the stickler.
Yes. Yeah.
I can now, because I recognize him, I can turn him off.
Yep.
Right? And what happens is over time, it slowly goes away.
So does the book talk about identifying triggers for when those things go off and how you can handle that? Or?
Yeah, well, the point is to be able to catch them immediately as soon as they happen.
Okay.
And particularly what he likes is his judge is called Darth Vader.
Oh, force be with you.
And so
I can resist.
and I had one client where literally her Berkman, she was 99 challenge, which means she's really, really hard on herself. And the idea was just to get her to back off a little bit, and it made a big difference.
Okay.
So
cool. That sounds like a great book.
Yes, it's I said with the stuff that's on his website. They said the little, he's got two little tiny assessments, and the one that's really, really worthwhile is identifying which are your primary saboteurs, and get used to identifying those, and then you can do something about them.
Yeah. Well, then if you can turn them off, you're not wasting time fussing with them, and you can be focusing on the better things, the things that matter, and learning to say no. So back to our first book, Essentialism.
So we've covered essentialism. We've covered positive intelligence. The next one is one of my favorites called Quiet.
That is a good book.
And let me go plug that in. I really, Quiet, written by Susan Cain. And what is about, it is about introversion. And the fact is, we since Dale Carnegie, we have been in the world of the cult of the personality. We're all supposed to act extrovertedly. For example, I am a closet introvert. I was a very shy kid. I eventually learned when I was at IBM to be a phenomenally good public speaker. I've had people tell me I'm one of the best public speakers they've ever seen. That is a developed skill. It is not a natural talent. And I am, and again, the concept of introversion, extroversion. Introversion says you get energy by being by yourself.
Yes.
Extroversion says you get energy by being with other people. And just because you act like an extrovert, which by the way, everyone says, to be successful in your career, you should act like an extrovert. Well, I can't tell you the number of salespeople I've worked with who are closet introverts. They are on top of things. They can go to network meetings, and when they're done, they go.
Yeah.
In fact, I was working with one woman where her husband's a big time extrovert. She's a closet introvert. And when we're at an event and when she's at the end of the day, she says, I just want to go back to my room and veg. And he will start making excuses for her. Well, she's not feeling well. She's feeling fine. She just don't want to be with people.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And so one of the things she talks about in the book, which I find really valuable, is restorative niches. And what restorative niches, if you're an introvert and you are put in a position where you have to be where you're in a situation where things are being sucked, the energy is being sucked out of you, start finding short intervals where you can go do something that you enjoy by yourself that you can get energy. So the classic example is I have a client who loves to knit. And if she was running team meetings, I told her is you need to take 15-minute knitting breaks 2 to 3 times during the day, which means during lunch, you don't hang out with everybody at lunch. You go quickly, eat your lunch, then you go out in the hallway or find a quiet space and you go knit. I had another client, because what happens is it turns this off. I had another client who had to do, I don't know, 5, 6 talks in 2 days at his channel conference. And he always said, I have to stay in the room. I said, no, you don't go stay in the room. When you're done talking, you're done with the presentation, you go back to your room for half an hour. And you either get your book, you turn on your tunes, you do something to get quiet.
And those restorative niches are really valuable. They really restore you quickly. I mean, I do that. I am an introvert too, and I can go for a while, but then I do need my quiet time. I need to, I don't know whether it's going around the corner from all the activity and seeing and just looking at my phone, or just just being quiet or just being away. It just is way too much. So it's good to recognize that and take care of yourself in that way.
Yeah, especially particularly if you're going to be around a lot of people for a lot of time. This is where saying no.
Yeah.
The classic example I always give is I had to, in my last year at my last corporate gig, I had to go to Australia and teach a 4-day sales class. And the end of each day, everybody wanted to go say, Mark, let's go out to dinner. And the answer, this was July, and we were 12 hours different from France. So I said, nope, I'm going to go have a quiet dinner with my buddy Ian, and then I'm going back to my room with a bottle of wine and watch the Tour de France.
Yeah.
Period. Leave me alone.
Yep.
And so half the country, half the world is approximately are introverts. Yet we do a lot of damage to ourselves. And one of the things she talks about in the book is an exercise they did at the Harvard Business School, where they said, okay, you're in Alaska and your plane has crashed, and you're trying to figure out, your team has to get together and figure out what you're going to take off the plane to survive. And this one team actually had a guy who grew up in the Alaska outback. Very introverted, and they never asked him what he thought.
Oh.
And they kept on going, but he didn't tell us. And the answer was, no, it was your job. You had this phenomenal resource, and you didn't take advantage of it. Yeah. Well, he didn't speak up.
That's because he was out collecting data and gathering the situation and looking for answers.
So it was quiet for me, gave me a lot of insight, but it also gave me some names. I work with clients on setting up those restorative niches, finding those little quiet times you schedule into your day. I have one client who on her phone, she has her phone set up so twice a day she takes out a drawing pad, and she knows she has to do that. Okay. The last book I want to mention is by Adam Grant called Give and Take.
Okay.
And Give and Take, believe it or not, is about givers and takers. Oh, more importantly, matchers.
Oh, okay.
And he says the vast majority of people in our society are matchers. If I want something, I'll do something for you, and I want something back. And it's an equal tit for tat. Part of this is to understand, to identify takers, and he has some very, very famous ones. The one famous one, his now name escapes me, was the CEO of Enron. But also is the true givers who give and don't expect anything in return are the ones that actually win. And he's got all kinds of strategies in there, how not to get burned out from giving. Um, and the one concept that I got out of Give and Take was the concept of weak ties. So he talked about, there's a guy in the book he talks about where he was actually fairly introverted, but what he found is he leveraged his weak ties. And weak ties comes from a Stanford University research study in the 70s that says people who you knew 15, 20 years ago, who know you, number one, they're easier to reach out to because you actually knew them at one point in time. It's much more comfortable for an introvert to reach out to these weak ties. But from a career perspective, they're actually more valuable because they have a very different network than you do. Yeah,
Okay.
The Give and Take book is really good, and I have used the concept of weak ties with a number of clients. In fact, I just published a post on LinkedIn. It was on my blog site called "The Introverted Sales Guide Job Search."
It's a great read. You need to read it.
And what it was about was, I worked with a guy who was a sales guy, and he was really introverted. And I got him to very methodically reach out to his people he had worked with. And he was 59 years old and had been working at the same company for 20 years. And what he found was the more he reached out, the more people went, oh, by the way, did I tell you he's a really nice guy?
But he was probably genuine in his asking.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was an account manager. He was,
so
therefore, when he would ask them, "Can you help me?" the answer wasn't just yes; it was hell yes.
Hell yes.
So, and the key piece is they live in a different world than you do. People who know you really well know the same people you do. So I'll use the example. When I went off to teach high school math back in 2004, one of my best networking contacts was my chiropractor. At that point, I've been with my chiropractor for 10 years. She's now the other woman in my life. I've been with her 25 years. And, the concept is she knows a lot of people that I don't. Similarly,
whole different circles.
Yes, very different circles. Similarly, from a networking perspective, one of your most valuable resources, if you have kids, is your kids' friends' parents. There are people that you have some connection to, and they may live in a completely different world than you do. So those are the books, I said, these are the books that really have had, in this last year, an effect on me and my clients. Let me throw one more in.
Okay.
And that is Conversational Intelligence. Let me throw that in. Conversational intelligence is about taking conversations at a deeper level. But the one thing that I really like, I wrote a blog post here recently called Make Stuff Up Syndrome, MSU Syndrome. Stuff can be replaced with a 4-letter expletive deleted. And one of the things she talks about is the stories we make up in our heads, which we all do. They're not going to like me. I had a client who went through a 6-month interview process with a pharmaceutical company, and at each point, they're not gonna wait for me. And we had a hard date to wait for, which was after her 55th birthday because of pension reasons.
Yeah.
So when it came down, they made the offer. She said, "I can't be there for 6 weeks." And they went, they're not going to wait for it. Well, they waited 6 months for you. They're going to wait another month.
Yeah, they will.
And so she created all this stress in her brain. And the reality is you don't know until you ask. And if they say, no, we're not going to wait, then you have to start having that discussion.
Yeah.
But not go, they're not going to wait. We can't tell them that.
Yeah. You definitely have to go ask them.
Yeah.
And see what they say.
So, with that, does anybody else have a favorite book that they read recently that they would really like? So Paul says there's a book by Phil Harkins, Powerful Conversation, that deals along the same lines. Yeah, there are any number of, as I said, positive conversations or positive. God, my mind's just gone blank. Conversational intelligence goes into a lot of other stuff, but it was the, I call MSU syndrome, make stuff up.
Yeah.
That it really, and it's been interesting. One of the things I've worked with a number of clients is when they make stuff up, and when things don't occur the way they think they do, go back and observe what was the story you made up in your brain that is not based on anything. It's just based on assumptions or based on belief systems.
Emotions.
Right. Worry.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I wrote in my blog post on MSU syndrome, my one client, she'd been consistently coming in with this activity list into her boss in a review. And her boss, who's a bully, would always beat her up for it because it wasn't exactly right. So she decided, well, she's going to be really mad if I don't bring it in. And she didn't bring it in. Nothing happened. The boss never asked her to bring it in.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And it was like, well, it was your own creation. And the more she, and again, looking back at the stress she created for herself. So I am going to stop the recording.
Okay.
And see if anybody wants to pop in and have a discussion, because I'm not going to record anybody's discussion. So 1, 2, 3, we are pausing.
All right.
Next week, we are going to be talking about the 5 things on your resume that say you're too old.
Oh my goodness, that would be a good topic.
And the idea is to start getting into some of the age discrimination issues and how to combat it.
Okay.
I have the 5 things. By the way, that post, when it went on LinkedIn at the end of 2014, went viral.
Good.
It's got about 700,000 views.
Okay.
And I will explain. It was the last of the 5 that really pissed people off. So you can go read what that 5th one was, because it really pissed people off.
I have a good idea of what it might be.
Yes. So with that, let's hope to see you next week. And I'm going to shut this puppy down. So,
all right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Come back. All right.
I'm going to